Even the government of India released a notification, whereas the caste is missing in that. Why do we need a caste census? Now, what is beyond caste census? What is the demands, which is not just limited to caste census alone? Now, everybody is going to the court, approaching against this. They are increasing the reservation level beyond 50%. When it was implemented, EWS was there, then it was not been discussed that, oh no, it is going beyond 50%. It was not discussed. Now they are challenging in the courts, whereas in the situation, in court we don't have a reservation policy. So how it's going to reflect?
Actually, for every policy making for the government, whether be it a social or educational or economic reforms, data is very much required. Then only we can make a policy making correctly and appropriately. The first National Commission for the Backward Classes, constituted in 1953 by Kaka Kalelkar chairmanship, itself has recommended that we should have a caste census. But the report was shelved by the government. That is a different matter. But the recommendation includes that there should be a caste census. Please, for tribals also there is a ministry, and for the physically handicapped, physically challenged people there is a ministry. So all these things, they are apportioning the budget allocation. On what basis they are doing? For SC/ST there is a data. For minorities there is a data. Where is the data about the backward classes? There is no data. But when the question of affirmative action comes, they say that we go on merit. But the myth of merit has been totally exposed today because of the EWS reservation of 10%. All along these people, they are telling that they have got the merit and they are opposing the reservation. But after 10% reservation for EWS upper caste, they are silent about merit. So the myth of merit has been exposed by them itself. In fact, Periyar was the only leader who demanded that when Article 17 was there, which said that untouchability is a crime, Periyar was the only leader who demanded that remove that word untouchability and substitute with the word caste, so that the caste form practiced in any form is an offence. But nobody was prepared to do that. So you are restricting that with a lateral entry concept without any reservation policy means totally already the bureaucracy is dominated by the upper caste, and the lateral entry will only further add that, and you are adding fuel to the fire. So these are the things, once the caste census is coming up, I think these are the issues which will be boomerang on the government, and the government is compelled to answer to all these issues also.
In the Caste Census series, we have been doing a couple of interviews. Today we have Karunanidhi with us. The General Secretary of All India Other Backward Employees Federation is also very active in social justice issue. He also filed so many petitions in the Supreme Court as well, even as part of which is against the EWS, and also in support of, in demand of caste census also he had filed a couple of petitions. Today we have with him, we'll ask him the questions. Hello sir, welcome to Periyar Screen. So we have been discussing the caste census issues around, we've taken a couple of interviews previously as well. So why do we need a caste census? This has been a question for a long time. Even the government of India released a notification, whereas the caste is missing in that. So why do we need a caste census?
Vanakkam. Thank you for having a discussion on caste census. Actually, for every policy making for the government, whether be it a social or educational or economic reforms, data is very much required. Then only we can make a policy making correctly and appropriately. That is why the demand for a census is required. The question of caste census comes in the Indian polity because the society is totally divided on caste lines. Further, there is a graded inequality among the castes. So the representation of the various castes in the power structure is not up to the desired level, or there is no adequate representation as mentioned in the Constitution of India drafted by Dr. Ambedkar. So for every purpose, if you want to allocate funds for the particular communities who have been neglected socially and economically, we should have a data. Similarly, the affirmative action is there. Whether a particular community requires affirmative action or not can be decided only by a data, for which we require a caste data. So, on all these aspects, there has been a continuous demand, not only now. The first National Commission for the Backward Classes, constituted in 1953 by Kaka Kalelkar chairmanship, itself has recommended that we should have a caste census. But the report was shelved by the government. That is a different matter. But the recommendation includes that there should be a caste census. Afterwards, the second Backward Class Commission, headed by B.P. Mandal, that total recommendation was based on the 1931 census data, caste census data, done by the Britishers. Because Mandal did not have any data of the various backward class communities at hand as on date. And he also pointed out, the commission also pointed out that there should be a caste census so that we can define the concept of reservation policy, the other welfare measures for the welfare of the backward classes. He also recommended that. But the governments did not answer to these questions. Again, when the UPA government came, this demand gained momentum because the UPA government constituents, major constituents are from the regional parties. All are having large concentration towards social justice. So every party, as a constituent of the UPA government, they demanded that there should be a caste census, particularly for the backward classes, because the Supreme Court has restricted the reservation to 27% based on the Mandal Commission recommendations. 50% ceiling has also been imposed, whereas the population of the backward classes is beyond 50%. So there is a demand. So when the UPA 2 government came, they made a conscious decision in the parliament that a caste census will be conducted in the 2011 census. But they retreated from that promise. They conducted a socio-economic caste census survey, particularly by the Rural Development Department, which is not actually a correct way of doing caste census, but they did it. The report also came in 2015. By the time the government also changed, the present NDA government headed by Prime Minister Narendra Modi was there. They have also not released the data of the report. The Registrar General gave different versions. On the one hand, he said 98% of the data are accurate. But when the matter went to the court, he said that there are a lot of inaccuracies. We cannot release the data. But the demand for caste census gained momentum because every community felt that their representation in the governance of the country is not up to their desired level or up to the adequate mark. So many of the communities, not only the backward classes, so other communities also, like Marathas, Jats in the central government, like that they also demanded that they should be given affirmative action. And the court rejected their demand on the basis that there is no empirical data to substantiate or authorize their statement. So there is a demand universally in India by various segments of the population that there should be a caste census. So the present government, the pressure was there. Principal opposition party also demanded caste census. So the present government, initially they were not owning the statement. They said that we don't want to calculate the caste census, even though the former Home Minister Rajnath Singh, presently Defence Minister, he said in 2018 that in 2021 census, a caste census will be conducted. But subsequently they retreated. In the parliament also, the government said for the time being we are going to count only SC, ST and other religious denominations. We will not count the other castes. But subsequently they changed the statement and finally they have agreed that the caste census will be conducted along with the present census enumeration, which will be done in 2026. And also they have issued a notification on 16th June last month that there will be a census will be conducted. The question now is, why the notification is not mentioning about the caste census enumeration? That is one of the important questions. But the point is, the Census Act 1948 says that caste census will be conducted by the census department, and the commissioner will be appointed by the government, and the commissioner is authorized to ask any type of questions related to the census. That is what the act, I can summarily say, this is what the essence of the act. So nowhere it has been mentioned that the census notification must include a caste census should be conducted, because the earlier notifications also, they have nowhere mentioned about they will conduct a SC/ST caste enumeration or religious denomination enumeration will be done, though nowhere the notification has been mentioned earlier also. So this is not new. The notification will generally say that a caste census will be conducted, and further a notification will be issued by the government authorizing the census commissioner to frame the questions. He will prepare the questionnaire where the questions will be drafted by him. Earlier it included SC/ST and religious denominations. Now the demand is you create a separate column where you can include the caste and subcaste, so that can be other caste can be counted in that. Not only backward classes, all the other communities other than SC/ST can be counted in that. That column will suffice, and beyond that we have to make other data also available for the public, so that the census can comprise all the data required for counting the caste census also. So this is what is going to happen now, and we have to ensure that the questionnaire does contain a column where caste and subcaste should also be included. That is a very important thing, and the other socio-economic factors also should be included. Mere counting the caste is not enough. We should know what is the social, educational, economic conditions of each caste. That is very, very important today. So the present notification apparently has mentioned only the census, which is followed by the earlier notifications also. They have followed the same system. So the census commissioner is the authorized person to frame the questions. He has to frame the questions. Our request or our demand is that there should be a separate column where caste and subcaste should be included.
So for a long time, it has been a demand that we are asking for a caste census. So now the opposition party also doesn't have an agenda. It seems like now they said, okay, you want a caste census, we'll do that. They released a notification. Now, what is beyond caste census? What is the demands which is not just limited to caste census alone?
Actually, I told you, the very purpose of caste census is the Indian society. We are having different castes. In scheduled caste, we are having nearly 1,600 castes today. In backward classes, as on date, we are having nearly 4,000 castes. Beyond that, the other castes are also there. Now the government has given 10% reservation for the economically weaker sections among the upper caste. There is a case pending in the Supreme Court about the methodology adopted by the government in giving 10% reservation. On what basis? Where is the data? And so that question has to be answered by the government, but the government doesn't have a data. And the present data available with the government is only 1931. It is totally outdated data. So we should have an updated version of the data of various communities. So the caste census serves the purpose that we will have an updated data where the researchers, policy makers and other scientists will have the data of various communities. They can analyze the importance of having the representations of the various communities and the demand by the various groups, particularly the backward classes, that their demand for a proportional representation in the governance of the country, that will gain momentum once this caste census is undertaken. Beyond that, people will come to know what is a percentage of community they belong to, how much they represent in the various sectors. That also will be known to the public and to the government, and corrective measures can be taken by the government so that the proper analysis of the reservation policy, of the affirmative action can be undertaken by the government. Today, many of the communities demand reservation. We don't know how much percentage they place in the respective states, but they demand a percentage where nobody knows what is their actual requirement or how much they are represented in the government. Whereas the caste data, if it is data taken today, will reflect how much they represent and how much they are in the community. And also the community themselves know where they are, and their demand will also be accordingly to their required level only. They cannot make an undue demand that our percentage, whatever maybe I will demand 20% or 30% reservation. They will know where they are, and accordingly only their demand will be there. So this will make a total analysis of the reservation policy, number one. Number two, the welfare schemes by the government. Today the government is apportioning for the, I am telling about the union government. The government is apportioning, the social justice ministry is there for welfare schemes for the backward classes, scheduled caste. There is another ministry for minority. There is another ministry for women. All these ministries, for tribals also there is a ministry. And for the physically handicapped, physically challenged people, there is a ministry. So all these things, they are apportioning the budget allocation. On what basis they are doing? For SC/ST, there is a data. For minorities, there is a data. Where is the data about the backward classes? There is no data. So the government as on date has allocated only 4,500 crores in the budget for the backward classes, who roughly constitute more than nearly 60% of the population. Even if you calculate in the normal course, among the 60%, 50% of the population is below the poverty line. So how much you are allocating is nowhere near the requirement. So all these things will come to the light, and the government will take proper measures in allocating budget allocation for these people also, wherever the requirement is there, how much area, in which area they are underdeveloped, in which area they are developed, so that they can apportion the budget allocation properly, so that the needy will get the amount under the welfare scheme. These are the important things once we get the data. So the caste census merely does not reflect the numbers only. It totally corrects the affirmative action policies adopted by the government. It makes corrective measures for the welfare schemes also, and all these things are very much required in a country like India, where the society is totally divided, and also there is an imbalance among the various segments of the society.
Okay, so the demand of proportional representation, now I think now the age might be 100 years. In 1925 Periyar started as demanding for a proportional representation. Now you also said that EWS has been already implemented and 10% has been given in the union government, whereas Tamil Nadu government been restricting in a way. But in Bihar they implemented EWS, as well as they tried to increase the representation for other backward castes also. They had an EBC. In Telangana it's happening. They have implemented the subcategorization as well. They try to increase the level. Now everybody is going to the court, approaching against this. They are increasing the reservation level beyond 50%. When it was implemented, EWS was there, then it was not been discussed that, oh no, it is going beyond 50%. It was not discussed. Now they are challenging in the courts, whereas in the situation in court we don't have a reservation policy. So how it is going to reflect?
Actually, this caste census data will reflect on the judiciary also, because today when we analyze the representation in judiciary of the various segments of the society, there is no social diversity in the top courts also, in the High Courts and the Supreme Court of India. There is no total diversity, which recently the Supreme Court has also observed in one of appointment of a backward class judge. The collegium has mentioned, yes, to give diversity among the various groups, we have given a representation for a judge belonging to the backward class. Now only they have realized that there should be diversity in the Supreme Court. Actually, the Supreme Court should have done this earlier when the 1950s itself. Whereas now only they have realized after nearly 75 years. So far we have not have any Chief Justice from the backward classes. That is the position. So naturally there is really a demand that there should be a diversity in all the fields. not only in the judiciary, in the media, in various segments of the society, because the country constitutes various segments of the people. Various segments should be there in various sectors also. In the private sector also, totally untouched today, totally monopoly of the forward caste and the backward classes or scheduled caste doesn't have any say in entering the private sector, and 90% of the jobs today is rest with the private sector, and the government funds are being used by the private sector. No private sector can survive without the support of the government for everything, whether it is a land, electricity or water or funds from the banks, everything they get from the public. But when the question comes of affirmative action comes, they say that we go on merit. But the myth of merit has been totally exposed today because of the EWS reservation of 10%. All along, these people were telling that they have got the merit and they are opposing the reservation. But after 10% reservation for EWS upper caste, they are silent about merit. So the myth of merit has been exposed by them itself. So all these things will come to light once the caste census is coming. Then regarding this proportional representation, see, the country, when you are dividing the country on the name of caste, everything is depending on this only, then naturally the representation of various communities very much required. Or the government should have the guts to abolish completely the caste system, which they are not ready. In fact, Periyar was the only leader who demanded that when Article 17 was there, which said that untouchability is a crime, Periyar was the only leader who demanded that remove that word untouchability and substitute with the word caste, so that the caste form practiced in any form is an offense. But nobody was prepared to do that. Today also, that if the government is prepared to bring an amendment in that Article 17, then the question of proportional representation or anything will naturally, the demand will not be there. Because as long as the caste system is there, and also there is a graded inequality is there in the society, the demand for representation of the various communities will be there only. And naturally the answer is proportional representation. Every community should have a proportional representation, because in only for employment and education this is coming. Whereas in all the social sectors, for example, in the marriage, you can see any newspaper, Times of India or Hindu, in the matrimonial column, all the communities, forward communities are asking from their own caste only their bride or bridegroom. So this is what is happening in the Indian system. So when it is so, the society is like that, then naturally the representation of the people in the governance of the country also should be proportional. So the proportional representation will be the answer as long as caste system survives in this country. If the government is ready to annihilate caste, then this demand will not have any say in this.
Okay, so I think this will be the last question, that you're also serving as a member of the Social Justice Monitoring Committee in the Tamil Nadu government. Whereas you get a chance to know that the policy has been implemented or not, I mean, per se, specifically to reservation policy. But as in Government of India, for a long time, we doesn't have a caste census also. The data enumeration has been not done. And similarly, we come to know that a lot of RTIs reveals that there has been no representation. And even yesterday there was a news telegram published that the professor been none found suitable to get a promotion. So if this contradictory goes on, whether we have a caste census done, we get a proportional representation, then the policy been not implemented, then what do we do?
Actually, that is actually Tamil Nadu government under the leadership of present Chief Minister M.K. Stalin, they made a unique committee, Social Justice Monitoring Committee, which is unique, and no other state or in the union government we have a committee like that. So it is not appointed. It is only an appointment by the government. They are not employees of the government. So they have got the powers to visit any departments, state government departments, and to see whether the policy of the government related to reservation policies are implemented or not. And wherever there is some inaccuracies or if it is not done properly, it has been pointed out, report has been sent to the government. So some corrective measures are being taken. So this is one good thing which the government of Tamil Nadu has done. Similar efforts have to be done by the union government also, where the other people like who are interested in social justice, those people have to be find they should be collected in the committee, and they should be allowed to visit various departments, because in today, even though the 27% has been implemented, more than 35 years has come, but still we see that many of the universities are not implementing the reservation policy. Today also we met one of our chairperson of the committee, where one representation has come, where Punjab University, they are not implementing reservation, 5% reservation and 0% for admission, 5% for employment. And we don't know what kind of decision a university can take, and defying the government orders. So these are all things going on. In many of the universities, the backward classes are restricted only at the entry level. They are not able to go to associate or professor level. The representation of the backward classes in professors in many of the central universities is very, very dismal. All these things are happening because there is a glass ceiling in various levels, and they are not granting promotions also. There is a demand for reservation promotion for the backward classes also. So these things, it is a big issue going on in universities, in government departments. Take the secretary level. In the secretary level also, the representation of the backward classes is almost zero. 89 secretaries, there is no, only 3 OBCs are there, like that they are telling. So this is a position after 75 years of independence, means we have to go a long way. And one of the measures to address these issues, proportional representation and reservation promotion, if you go like this, then you will have that. But whereas the government is coming with a lateral entry concept, where there is no reservation policy, and they are being recruited directly as a deputy secretary or joint secretary, means where these backward classes will come at the level of a section officer level. Above that, they cannot go up to the top level also. You are restricting that with a lateral entry concept without any reservation policy, means totally already the bureaucracy is dominated by the upper caste, and the lateral entry will only further add that, and you are adding fuel to the fire. So these are all the things. Once the caste census is coming up, I think these are the issues which will be boomerang on the government, and the government is compelled to answer to all these issues also.
Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Thank you, Ila, for your deep understanding of the issue and raising the questions. I think I have answered to some of that, but still a lot of things have to be known, and thank you once again for it. Thank you.